one of the trees that you guys were requesting to learn about, like 3 of you requested it, was the Taylor Avocado. So I arranged it with Alex. I went over there and we spoke about the Taylor Avocado. I can tell you my tree, I put in the ground. I moved it too many times, but thankfully it didn't die, but it's in a pot now. I ran out of space, but I'm keeping it in a pot. It's doing well, but Alex's tree looked amazing. It was loaded, 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 and he says the tree's always loaded. That's why I actually bought it. And it's just a great avocado. I have some inside he gave me. I tasted one last week. I think the first one I had was a couple of weeks ago. It was just a great avocado. If you have room, get that avocado. Now, it is a late season avocado. There's a lot of late seasons avocados, so you have to make a decision if you're going to get one. I'm going to have a video about that soon, but here's Alex at Tropical Acres Farms talking about the Taylor Avocado. All right, everybody, here we are with Alex at Tropical Acres Farms, and we are in front of another avocado tree that he's going to talk about today. It's the Taylor Avocado. So tell us about this tree, because it's looking great and it has some fruit on there. Tell us about it.
Okay, Taylor is a Guatemalan type avocado that was selected in South Florida, I believe in the 19 teens. It was a seedling of a California avocado called Royal, and it is an A-type avocado. I think it was probably named after William Taylor, who was the head of the USDA's Division of Plant Industry back around that time. But I haven't seen a direct reference saying that it was named after him, but that's what I suspect, and I think it was selected at the USDA's facility in Miami back then. So it was one of those selections that was made in South Florida during a time that avocados were starting to become popular, or maybe had already become popular, but new selections were being made at that time to improve upon what had been originally introduced in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So this avocado, Taylor, it was recognized pretty quickly that this was a good tasting avocado, a good quality avocado that fruited during the winter period in Florida. So its season here is like November through January, I would describe it. I usually like to wait until December to start harvesting them, but we could have started picking them at least several weeks ago, if not maybe almost a month ago. And so they considered this to be a superior avocado selection, and it was actually planted commercially in Florida. So amongst the old school avocados, this one did carve out a little niche for itself in the commercial industry, but it didn't last. And we're not quite sure why either. My suspicion is that they didn't like the tree because it's kind of, well, we'll call it spindly growing, I guess, a little bit. Or they didn't like the size of the fruit. It is a smaller size avocado. It depends on how loaded up the tree is in a given year, but generally speaking, they're going to be well under a pound. So I'll show some examples. There's one right here, or a couple right here. So this is kind of typical size, but they can get a little bigger than this. This tree is very, very loaded with fruit. Paul, you can probably zoom in on all the fruit that's up in the canopy here. It's quite a substantial amount. There's a lot back here. There's so much fruit on this thing that I have this branch that I should have propped up and did not. And it's got lots of fruit on it. So this is a really, really prolific variety. Certainly a commercial grade producer, but one that also would make a terrific backyard avocado for folks. You know, as long as you're willing to prune the tree. And I would imagine this tree's already a little too tall. We can take it down several feet and it would be fine. But it's been a very good performing tree for us. It's always been very healthy and typically very productive. It fruited really well this year and most years prior. So we're not sure why exactly it didn't become more popular in the commercial trade, but at a minimum, you would have expected an avocado like this to have caught on in the nursery trade for people growing them in their yards and at home and stuff, but it never did. So this avocado, for whatever reason, was never grafted by most of the nurseries in Florida, but it stuck around. It wouldn't shock me if there's some real old orchards down in the Redland that have Taylor in them, but I've never seen it at a grocery store, and I've never heard of a packing house harvesting it. So we've tried to make it a little more popular and more known. So even though it's a smaller fruit, the flesh to seed ratio isn't too bad. I would say, avocados like Brogdon and Lula have a worse flesh to seed ratio. So it's not like all seed. And it's got a decent oil content too. I would say probably in the mid-teens, but I've never tested it. Just guessing. So, as good as some of the other late season avocados in that regard, if you wanted to use it, you know, for making guacamole or what have you. But it's great eating out of hand. And yeah, so that's what I know about
Does
this
it
thing.
taste like a Haas or similar?
No, I don't think so. In my opinion, if you eat this and Haas, you'll notice a difference. Certainly, Haas has a higher oil content, probably close to double what this thing has. But that's not, I'm not trying to disparage Taylor. It's just not a fair comparison or a straight comparison. It's more comparable to other, um, late season avocados like Lula or Oro Negro or something like that, probably. Um, you can test them against one another at the same time of year since they're maturing at the same time of year. Paul, I'll give you some of these to try, and you can decide and taste them against, Lula and Florida Haas and some of the other stuff that's still in season.
Now, from the ones that that are in this season, would this be from a growing standpoint and from a productive standpoint one of the ones you'd recommend over others, or is it all pretty much
It comes down to kind of what size fruit you prefer. Um, probably the oil content's slightly higher than like Monroe or Choquette. At best, it's similar. It's definitely not less than those. I think this has been a more consistent producer for us than most of the other varieties that come late, maybe with the exception of Lula. Lula usually fruits pretty well for us late. So it hasn't had too many issues with alternate bearing and that kind of thing. So it just comes down to personal preference and trying it and seeing what you like best. I'm not terrific at describing their flavor, so I won't attempt to here, but I feel like it's a good choice for somebody that's willing to prune their avocado tree. So it's definitely a more aggressive grower than some of our other varieties, but I don't mind that because I'm willing to prune it once a year or so to keep the size in check. And I will be pruning this thing after I get all the fruit off of it.
And how much do you prune it? Like how short can you actually keep it?
You can probably keep it at 10 to 12 feet. It's clearly taller than that now, but I think with some judicious pruning, you can keep it in that range without overfeeding it. So,
is this something that can grow in a pot as well? Or?
Well, I suppose you could grow anything in a pot if the pot's large enough, but it's probably not the first avocado I would recommend for container culture. For pots, a slower growing variety or a smaller tree, at least like some of the Mexican types, usually grow a little slower here in Florida. Day is not a terribly vigorous tree, at least hasn't been for us, so that's like a smaller variety tree. Some of the Hawaiian ones have grown pretty slowly for us, so maybe those would do okay in containers. This is certainly one of the last, if not the last avocado I'd recommend for like a patio or something because of the rate of growth. So, but for somebody that's got a little bit of yard space to work with, and can give maybe 15 feet of space between it and other structures or trees or whatever, then it's an option.
So Choquette, Monroe, Oro Negro, and this Taylor are all late season avocados.
Yeah.
If you only had a choice of one of them, which one would you have?
Oh goodness. Okay. If I could only choose one, that's tough. I think I would choose Lula. I really like Lula. But the Taylor wouldn't be far behind. Maybe my favorite tasting of those might be Oro Negro, but the Oro Negro took so long to start fruiting well for us, and it didn't fruit well at all this year. So the inconsistency in that regard would probably keep me from planting that over this if I could only choose one. But optimally, you have space for more than one, and you can have multiple late season avocados. So they all deserve a seat at the table, I think.
Okay, 3 seasons, early, mid, and late. 3 avocados. People having room in their yard, room for 3 trees to cover all the seasons. Early, middle, and late. If it's your house, what do you do?
I would probably, I think I would plant Dupuis, Day, and Lula, I guess. If you're giving me choice of 3, but like
Yes.
okay, so if somebody wanted to go Brogdon, Catalina, and Monroe, I think that would be, you'd be happy with that too. Like or Taylor. There's definitely enough good choices out there that you can go a variety of different ways, and it might come down to like, okay, do you want at least one A type paired with your Bs or one B type paired with your As? So you have to look at that. This is an A type right here, Taylor. And Lula is an A type as well.
Now, we didn't mention the Super Haas. That's another late season as well.
Yeah, Super Haas, it kind of rides that barrier between a mid-season and a late, I guess, because it usually starts earlier than this, or earlier than Monroe or Choquette, for example. So you could include that, but in our experience, Super Haas doesn't ripen as evenly as Florida Haas. So if I had to grow a Haas derivative, I'd probably grow the Florida Haas over the Super Haas, or the Ooh La La is, I think, really its proper name, not Super Haas, but it got renamed in the Florida nursery trade like a few other ones did. So, or you could grow Haas itself, but the fruit come out so tiny that it would deter probably a lot of people from growing it. But the regular Haas, in my opinion, ripens the most consistently, evenly compared to the Florida Haas or the so-called Super Haas or Ooh La La.
Sure.
So, but just realize if you're going to grow a Haas type, it's going to start a little earlier than the other late season avocados do. So you can really stretch the season out on avocados in Florida from like June to almost February some years. So
nice. Well, thank you very much, everybody. If you want to get this Taylor avocado, Alex has the budwood, and
we're still selling avocado budwood up until probably the first week of February or so. So if you're interested in trying to graft some avocados at home, now is like the perfect opportunity to submit a checklist on our website, and we will come out here and check the trees, see if they've got good ready budwood on them. Right now this Taylor does, but some of the other avocados might be flush and growth or whatnot, I'm not sure. Most of them are pretty calm right now, so a lot of good budwood to be had.
And I don't know if they're in stock now, but I got my Taylor avocado tree from Alex, so he has them too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we have them in stock either, honestly. But
sometimes you have.
Sometimes we have them. We actually have been planting a lot of avocado seeds lately, so that we've got rootstock to use in this coming year to produce trees like this. So we want to make some of these more obscure varieties that are certainly worthy of being trialed out or grown here in South Florida.
All right, 2 questions now. I know with mangoes you don't like to necessarily have more than one cocktail mango on one tree. But what about avocados? Like I just gave you an example of if you can only have one avocado tree. Is it fine to have 2 avocados in there, or do you run into the same issues?
You run into the same issues you do with mango. A variety will usually try to outgrow the other one, but and we don't do that here. We haven't done that with our trees. I suppose if we get desperate enough to add a variety, we might top work it onto one of our existing trees. But I don't think it's any more beneficial to do it with avocado than it is with mango. Some people do it with citrus and stuff like that. So you would want to, if you do that, you certainly would probably want to try to pair the vigor. Like you wouldn't want to graft a Mexicola avocado to a Taylor, because the Taylor's probably going to outgrow it, just from what I've observed of those varieties, just as an example. But we haven't tried to do that here.
And then what about that idea of 2 or 3 trees in one hole? Because you're not getting the whole tree, but you get
you
one
face
side
the same
of each.
issue, though. I mean, like if you plant them that close to one another and one of them is much more vigorous than the other 1 or 2 that you're planting in that hole, well, it's going to dominate the space, and it's going to shade the other variety out, constrict it out until it's not very healthy. So I'm sure it can be done, and if it's managed right, then you'll get away with it and maybe have a good experience with it. But we won't be doing that here. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much for this, everybody. There it is, the Taylor avocado. Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
All right. Let me show them fruit here.
Yeah, definitely take some video of all the fruit. We should pick some right now.
Can you pick any, or you gotta wait? Like, how do you? That's another good
They're all
question.
mature, so you
We could
pick
say
them.
this. That's
They're
another.
ripen.
So some avocados they're black when they're ready, not to Taylor. But how do you know these when they're ripe, other than the season? Because
Well, I mean, like the most obvious thing is that some of them will actually start to drop off, but we know what the maturity window is on this avocado. So one thing that I will observe on them when they get extra mature is that their skin will start to turn more of a dull, get more of a dull appearance. This one's kind of got it going on. And you can see almost a little yellow color from the sun, most likely.
What about the smooth versus bump? Is it bumpy avocado?
The outside surface of this is kind of bumpy. It's similar to, like, in that respect, it's similar to Haas. Like, you can see a physical resemblance. A number of Guatemalan type avocados have this kind of skin. So, but this one has kind of a thicker skin than you would find on a Haas type, which are normally more of a thin-skinned avocado. So this one's thicker. When you cut it open, you'll realize it because it's harder to cut into it. But, you know, it doesn't really affect the eating quality of the
Great.
flesh.
All right. We'll be doing a tasting with this. And thank you again, Alex. And get to the website, the link below the video. Thank you. All right, everybody. There it was. That was Alex. Thank you for requesting that we get that, because I'm glad we did while it was in season. If there's anything else you'd like to see me speak about, Alex about, or anyone else, let me know. As I said, I have a new video coming out soon about this late season avocados. And until then, everybody, put your comments and questions below. Thank you for subscribing. And have a great day and keep growing.